Thank you all very much. I'm Paul Sherman. I'm from the University of Guelph-Humber, SOCA Education Research Center, as you can see from the title slide. First, I'd like to give a very warm thanks to Estelle and Maureen for inviting us back. This year's our second year here, and I understand once again we're the only university presenting, which is a great privilege and an honor, and I hope in future years that will be expanded to other universities. And congratulations on the success so far of this summit. So, SOCA Education Research Center on Global Citizenship, I'm going to shorten that to CIRC-GC, is located at the University of Guelph-Humber in Toronto. And basically, it's a very unique research center because it's the only formal research center at a university in Canada that studies and researches SOCA education and global citizenship, which are both very much significantly aligned. So we've been doing a lot of research over the past 7 years on those two topics. And over the past 4 years, I guess, we've been working with Kansai Soka High School. You saw the last presentation. They gave us a shout out to the virtual exchange that we do with them. But along with those virtual exchange discussions that we do independent research. And my students this year are going to present the research that they did, just recently completed, based on the Everything You Treasure exhibit. So we've decided the format or presentation. I'm going to ask them questions on their research. They're going to answer. And hopefully we'll have some time at the end for you to ask some questions. We also have a short video at the end as well. So let's proceed. First question is for Dallas. Actually, before I ask the questions, maybe you can introduce yourselves.
Sounds good, Paul. Thank you. So my name is Dallas Lockhart, and I'm in my fourth and final year of the Community Social Services program at the University of Guelph-Humber.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Rachel Valentek, and just as Dallas, I am in the Community Social Services program in my fourth year.
Good morning. My name is Samuel Ogiopolta, and I am a student of kinesiology in my fourth year.
My name is Caitlin Dwayne, and I'm in my third year in the Community Social Services program as well.
Okay, thank you. So Dallas.
Yes.
Can you start by explaining why your team chose to explore the link between education and nuclear disarmament advocacy, and why it is important that youth are knowledgeable about this issue?
Yeah, absolutely, Dr. Sherman. So our team chose to explore the link between education and nuclear disarmament because when we talk about global issues like nuclear weapons, it can feel really distant, political, or almost too big for people to influence. But in reality, education has the power to shift that mindset completely. As a research team at Guelph-Humber studying SOCA education and global citizenship, we recognize that education can bridge moral awareness and knowledge, which can ultimately transform nuclear disarmament from a political topic into a humanitarian and ethical issue. So instead of thinking nuclear disarmament is something only world leaders deal with, education helps us see the human side, the real lives that are affected, the communities that are impacted, and the ethical responsibilities that we all share. Youth especially are at the pivotal center of that. Many of you here today at this summit are the future voters, policymakers, community builders, and activists. And awareness starts now, not just when you're suddenly in a leadership role later. When young people are informed and empowered early, they carry that awareness forward. And that's how long-term social change actually happens. Our approach was grounded in SOCA education principles, which prioritizes human dignity, compassion, and contributing to the well-being of others. Our study viewed education as a catalyst for empathy, reflection, and moral courage in confronting global issues like nuclear weaponry and proliferation. The Everything You Treasure exhibit, which is almost surrounded by us right now, had provided a tangible, reflective space that allowed participants at Guelph-Humber to connect emotionally and intellectually with the consequences of nuclear weapons. And that emotional connection really does matter. It's what transforms information into personal motivation and moral responsibility. Ultimately, that was our goal. By integrating peace education within higher education, our research hopes to inspire individuals to become more informed and compassionate global citizens who are capable of linking personal values to global peace and disarmament efforts. When youth connect these values, like justice, human rights, and community care, to global issues, they become the kind of leaders who don't just understand the world, but actively shape it for the better.
Okay, thank you, Dallas. Now, Caitlin, tell us about your survey instrument. What was its design? What specific attitudes or beliefs were you trying to measure before and after people viewed the exhibit?
So for our survey instrument, we used a pre and post design. It began with 5 short demographic questions covering age, gender, highest level of education completed, current year of study, and ethnicity. Then we included 9 Likert scale questions related to the subject of the exhibit. Each question was rated on a 5-point scale from strongly agree to strongly disagree. The surveys were completed anonymously and could be filled out either on paper or digitally. We had the participants complete both the pre and post survey, and for the post survey, we added 1 extra question that wasn't in the pre. The goal was to measure people's attitudes and beliefs about nuclear disarmament, specifically how they might change after seeing the exhibit. Some examples of the questions we asked were, nuclear weapons pose a major threat to the survival of civilization. I feel personally affected by the threat of nuclear war, and I feel empowered to make a difference in the movement for nuclear disarmament.
Okay, thank you, Caitlin. Then over to Rachel. What were the most significant changes you observed in people's attitudes after viewing the exhibition? Were there any results that surprised you?
Thank you, Paul. So after presenting the exhibit at our school at the University of Guelph-Humber, we did observe an overall significant change, a significant positive shift in participants' attitudes towards nuclear disarmament. And out of the 9 attitude-based questions that we posed, 4 showed statistically significant improvement. And these following statements include, I feel afraid when I think about the existence of nuclear weapons. I feel personally affected by the threat of nuclear weapons. I feel empowered to make a difference in the movement for nuclear disarmament. And the threat of nuclear war is relevant today. Additionally, 89.7% of our participants agreed or strongly agreed that the exhibit provided a very valuable tool to learn about nuclear weapons and the importance of nuclear disarmament. So this suggests that educational interventions can meaningfully increase awareness and engagement, whether it could be a brief encounter or something long-term. The remaining 5 questions likely reflect what is called the ceiling effect, which is when you cannot detect further differences because participants' responses already cluster near the upper limit or the ceiling. So in other words, the attitudes around these statements were already positive, so it left little room for measurable change. And from all of these results, we weren't surprised by them, but we were rather reaffirmed by them, as this reflects the broader Canadian public opinion around anti-nuclear sentiment. And what did stand out to us, however, was how education deepened those existing attitudes and beliefs already, and reinforcing that knowledge is an act of peace building in itself. And these findings have really strengthened our conviction that education can empower individuals to engage meaningfully in nuclear disarmament advocacy.
Okay, thank you very much, Rachel. And over to Samuel. Did you notice any demographic factors such as age or gender that influenced how people's attitudes changed after viewing the exhibit?
Yeah, so we examined age, gender, ethnicity, and education to determine whether these demographic factors influenced attitude changes after viewing the exhibit. The tests conducted on these variables showed no statistical significant differences across any of these groups. This suggests that the exhibit's impact was consistent and equitable for all participants, regardless of their demographic background. And I think we can all agree with that because we had the opportunity to explore these exhibits. yesterday. It also reflects that the exhibit's content was accessible and universally engaging, effectively promoting understanding across diverse audiences.
Okay, thank you, Samuel. So any good research looks at prior research in terms of a literature review, and I'm going to ask Caitlin to tell us about your lit review process. What trends did you uncover related to nuclear weapons and disarmament in other countries, and how do they compare with your own findings?
Yeah, so when it came to our literature review, we wanted to understand how attitudes towards nuclear weapons and disarmament varied globally. So we looked at research from Canada, the United States, Sweden, and Japan, and then compared those trends with our own research findings. We were especially interested in how educational intervention and moral values shape attitudes. In Canada, the data shows that people are committed to their peacekeeping identity. Around 80% agree we should work together to eliminate nuclear weapons, and 74% support signing the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, despite the fact that Canada is involved in NATO's deterrence strategy. In the US, the picture's more complex. About 53% of Americans say they're somewhat familiar with nuclear weapons, and more than half want to learn more. Their opinions often reflect a focus on national security. 63% believe US possession of nuclear weapons has deterred international conflict. Sweden, on the other hand, has shifted dramatically over time. They signed the Non-Proliferation Treaty in 1968, and today 78% of Swedes support signing the TPNW. There's a strong correlation here between higher education, left-leaning ideology, and support for disarmament. Moving on to Japan, the pacifist culture that developed after Hiroshima and Nagasaki still shapes public attitudes. Even though Japan relies on the US for nuclear deterrence, peace education is deeply ingrained in the culture, connecting humanitarian values and emotional understanding to the issue of nuclear weapons. When we compared all of these to our own research, we noticed a clear pattern. Education consistently plays a role in shaping people's attitudes. In our survey, participants reported feeling more confident supporting disarmament after seeing the exhibit. Similarly, research in Sweden and Japan reflects that educational interventions are important in shaping individual mindsets on disarmament of efforts. Overall, education is the key, as it provides a space for people to learn and build empathy so they can engage in important issues like disarmament. Even when government policies lag behind, public opinion can still be shaped by education.
Okay, thank you very much, Caitlin. Those of you that have done research know that it is fraught with challenges, and I'm going to ask Dallas to talk about some of the challenges that your team faced in conducting this research, whether in conducting your lit review, designing the survey, collecting data, or analyzing your results.
Yeah, great question, Dr. Sherman. So this research was very meaningful and exciting, but it did come with some minor challenges in planning, data collection, and data analysis. Research always looks organized on paper, but in real life, there are a lot of moving parts. One challenge was navigating the interdisciplinary nature of disarmament education, combining humanitarian, political, and psychological dimensions from diverse scholarly fields into one coherent framework. This basically means we weren't just reading one type of research. We were jumping between studies on global politics, human rights, peace psychology, and education theory. Trying to blend all of that into one clear story wasn't always easy. Sometimes it felt like putting together a puzzle where each piece came from a totally different box. But that process actually helped us to see how complex and how human disarmament really is. Another challenge had to do with collecting our data, as these logistics were tricky at times. Ensuring participants had completed both pre- and post-surveys during the week-long exhibit required careful coordination and follow-up to maintain sample consistency. We recognize as a team that people can be busy. People might forget, they rush to class, or they run off to get some coffee. So we had to follow up consistently, stay organized, and be flexible to get almost perfect completion numbers, which we're very proud of. We also had some challenges connecting as a team. Coordinating team meetings was often a challenge due to our conflicting academic schedules and personal responsibilities, making it necessary to adapt through asynchronous collaboration and effective communication online to stay aligned throughout the project. We each have various responsibilities outside of our roles as research assistants, so finding time to meet wasn't always realistic. That taught us a lot about teamwork and accountability. And then we had the analysis phase. Analyzing the data from our surveys using multiple statistical tests felt tedious and at times overwhelming. However, with the guidance and support from our research supervisor on the end, Dr. Paul Sherman, we were able to analyze the results at a more advanced and detailed level that strengthened the study's overall findings. In summary, the challenges we faced together weren't always setbacks. They were learning moments that helped us build research skills, teamwork skills, and patience, which are all things we'll be using moving forward.
Okay, thank you very much, Dallas, and thanks for that shout out. So research can be very dry and highly theoretical. Its ultimate value is how do you move from theory into the real world? And I'm going to ask Rachel to talk about the practical implications of your findings. What does your research suggest are effective ways to implement educational interventions that promote nuclear peace education and global citizenship?
Yes, thank you, Paul. So our findings definitely can demonstrate that educational intervention doesn't have to be something on a large scale or of high cost to be deeply impactful for people. The Everything You Treasure exhibit has been an example of student-led and community-based initiatives that can powerfully raise awareness about complex global issues like nuclear disarmament. And through this project, we saw that when people engage with nuclear peace education through interactive and reflective learning, these issues become more personal and tangible for them. And the participants didn't just learn about nuclear disarmament, they began to see themselves as being a part of it. And that's the power of education that's rooted in empathy and reflection. It creates what feels like distant global concerns into shared human experiences. So this research also highlights that the importance of equity and inclusion when implementing educational interventions. When learning environments are accessible, they empower participants from diverse backgrounds and identities to see how their voices and actions matter in building peace. And this sense of empowerment fosters civic responsibility and global citizenship, and understanding that peace isn't just something that is maintained or sustained from treaties or governments, but through the compassion and awareness of everyday civilians. And ultimately, our findings do suggest that creative, localized, and accessible approaches can strengthen global citizenship and nuclear peace education. By centering education in dialogue, empathy, and accessibility, we can inspire individuals to recognize their own place in nuclear disarmament efforts and to see global peace and security free of nuclear arsenals, not as something as like an abstract goal, but something that they can actively contribute in their own lives.
Okay, thanks, Rachel. Over to Samuel. What did your team learn about conducting research in this field? And if you were to continue this work, what would be your next steps?
Disarmament can evoke strong emotions. Research must remain objective and evidence-driven. It is essential to present findings without bias and ensure interpretation is guided by data rather than just sentiment. This is especially important when we are presenting this data to change makers. One limitation of our study, though, was we did not record how long participants spent engaging in the exhibit, and we opened future research. Tracking visit duration could help determine whether time spent meaningfully influences attitude changes or understanding. Other follow-up research directions can also be a qualitative follow-up where we conduct interviews or focus groups with participants to explore why they felt more personally affected or empowered after visiting the exhibit. This qualitative data would provide valuable context to complement the quantitative findings. Another approach is through an action-oriented measure, which we can include additional survey questions or components to assess behavioral intention, whether participants plan to share information about nuclear disarmament or engage in related advocacy efforts.
All right, Thank you, Samuel. We have a final question that all 4 students are going to answer, and that question is, how has your research changed your own perspective and attitude toward nuclear disarmament, peace education, and global citizenship? And we'll start with Dallas.
Okay. Yeah, so engaging in this research really deepened my understanding that peace building begins with education, and that emotional awareness and moral reflection learned through education can lead to social change more effectively than policy alone. This study showed me how nuclear issues are deeply human, not just political, reframing disarmament as an act of protecting life, dignity, and the planet. In addition to this, exposure to cross-cultural analyses of Canada, the United States, Sweden, and Japan revealed to me how education can shape public values, showing that informed empathy can sustain movements even when policy lacks. Personally, this experience raised a stronger sense of global citizenship and moral responsibility in myself, showing that even personal awareness in the branch level can contribute to additional collective peace efforts. The research we completed also reinforced my belief that transformative learning, rooted in empathy, courage, and reflection, can help to motivate youth to act for a nuclear-free world.
Okay, thank you. Over to Caitlin.
So this research has changed the way I think about disarmament, peace education, and global citizenship. I gained a much deeper understanding of how complicated public opinion on these issues really is. It also helped me realize just how big of a role education plays, as it gives people the tools and confidence to make informed choices about something as important as nuclear disarmament. I've come to realize that peace and global citizenship education can have a truly powerful impact if it was implemented worldwide. It has made me feel like my own opinions and actions matter, and that I can contribute to creating a more peaceful world. All in all, this project has gave meaning to my goals as a future social service worker. I feel even more motivated to spread awareness as a means to empower others and promote peace in community settings and therefore globally.
Samuel?
Yeah, personally, this project strengthened my belief that change starts with awareness, and that education is one of the most effective ways to shape a more peaceful and informed world. This idea also supports my reflection in Daisaku Ikeda's The Light of Learning, selected writings on education, which emphasizes that education should cultivate empathy, moral responsibility, and global citizenship. I will leave all of us with this, and this was a quote I actually heard yesterday, and I think it perfectly summarized my experience with conducting this research, and it says, "We all have the capacity to change the world, but this must start with its individuals."
Okay, and lastly, Rachel?
Thank you. I really appreciate hearing the team's personal experiences on this journey with conducting our research. And just as my fellow research assistants, this research shifted my own understanding of nuclear disarmament from something that felt so distant before and abstract into something that I now realize and acknowledge that it's our collective responsibility towards nuclear disarmament. And like many participants in the exhibit, I came to see that nuclear peace education isn't simply a political issue, it's more of a personal issue. And it's something that we can all contribute to through a compassionate and inclusive lens. And I moved from a passive agreement to an active understanding of the human and ethical consequences of nuclear weapons and how education can awaken this empathy and reflection within us. And through also exploring cross-cultural attitudes towards nuclear disarmament also helped me realize how national contexts are shaped by, beliefs on security and peace. But yet dialogue can bridge these gaps and these differences through our shared humanity. And to add on to what Samuel said, I want to provide a quote from Daisaku Ikeda's teachings. And he describes something as what we call the inner flame. And I found that my inner flame was awakened through this experience. And this inner flame is the light of human dignity and potential that moves us to act for peace. So it showed me that peace education isn't simply to inform, but is to truly transform us and create what can be awareness to empathy and empathy into action.
Okay, thank you. So I'd like to thank the team Rachel, Dallas, Samuel, Caitlin. I'd like you to give a great round of applause. They work really hard. They worked really hard on this project, and that's alongside of their coursework and their jobs and everything else they have to do. So very, very proud of them. So we just have now the very brief video.